Welcome. This presentation will provide an overview on municipal debt and how Massachusetts cities and towns can issue it. Please note that additional requirements may exist for regional school districts and special purpose districts seeking to issue debt. Municipal debt is debt, ordinarily notes or bonds, issued by cities and towns to lenders in exchange for funds, so that the city or town can fund certain governmental obligations. Debt may be issued to fund the acquisition of capital assets or to undertake a capital project. For example, debt can be used to finance the purchase of a fire truck, school and other municipal facility construction or extraordinary repair of municipal infrastructure, including streets and water and sewer systems, building of a park or playground, or the purchase of land. Cities and towns generally pledge their full faith and credit when borrowing. In some cases, municipalities can pledge a specific revenue stream in order to secure the debt with the lender. Interest on municipal debt is often tax-exempt, providing an incentive for investors. In order to maintain this exemption, the debt must be properly authorized and issued for a governmental purpose. Cities and towns in Massachusetts may only borrow as permitted by the legislature through the general laws or a special act. There are laws in place that govern what municipalities can borrow for and for how long, how they can pay off the debt, and how much debt they are able to authorize and borrow. This table references the statutes that govern specific types of projects municipalities may borrow for. The maximum amount of debt a city or town may have authorized at any time is 5% of its equalized valuation, which is the full and fair cash value of property within the community as biannually determined by the Commissioner of Revenue. However, there are a number of project types that fall outside of the statutory limit. For example, borrowing beyond the 5% limit can be permitted for constructing sewer systems, improving a public airport, or for emergency appropriations approved by DLS's Director of Accounts. For a listing of such projects, please refer to DLS's Asset Useful Life Schedules and Maximum Borrowing Terms Guidelines, which are available online. The guidelines define the maximum borrowing term for each type of asset or project. Borrowings for these types of projects are excluded from the limit and are known as outside debt. Borrowing for projects that apply towards the statutory debt limit are referred to as inside debt. A municipality may authorize debt in an amount equal to 10% of its equalized valuation with approval from the Municipal Finance Oversight Board. This table shows the state statutes that govern municipal borrowing limits, purposes, and terms. Debt issuance must be authorized by a 2/3 vote of the local legislative body, which is the city or town council or town meeting. In a city, the mayor may also need to approve of the issuance. In a town meeting form of government, borrowing can be approved contingent upon the approval of a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion. A vote to do so does not place the exclusion question on the ballot. The decision to present any Proposition 2.5 question to the voters is still made by the Select Board, and the borrowing authorization is not effective until the exclusion passes. There are multiple individuals who play a role in the debt issuance process. The local treasurer prepares and issues the bonds or notes, which are typically countersigned by the mayor in a city and by a majority of the Select Board in town. Municipalities also hire financial advisors to help decide which type debt instrument to issue, prepare issuing documents, communicate with rating agencies, and provide other guidance. A community's bond council will ensure that all legal prerequisites for issuance have been fulfilled, prepare town meeting warrants and other notices, confirm the tax-exempt status of debt, ensure all charter requirements and bylaws are followed, and confirm that all necessary approvals from state agencies are received. The three largest rating agencies are Moody's Investors Service, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch Ratings. The rating agency's function is to render an opinion on the municipality's likelihood of default. In conducting an assessment, the rating agency will analyze financial statements, management capability, fiscal stability, economic condition, and other data. The agency will then issue a report that presents the rating assignment and describes the community's financial position. Purchasers of municipal bonds and notes use this rating when considering their bids. Typically, higher-rated communities garner lower interest rate charges. Depending on the situation, a city or town may choose to issue either long-term or short-term debt. Long-term debt issuances have maturities greater than 1 year. Once the debt is issued, the municipality makes principal and interest payments to the bondholder based on a fixed schedule. Per Massachusetts general law, the only type of long-term debt that can be issued by cities and towns without special legislation is general obligation debt. Municipalities pledge their full faith and credit to pay off the obligations. State House serial notes are a long-term debt option for cities and towns. More information about this program can be found on DLS's website. General obligation debt typically matures in anywhere from 5 to 30 years. The Massachusetts Clean Water Trust also provides low-interest loans for up to 30 years to fund local drinking and wastewater projects. Zero-interest loans are also available to fund utility projects in rural areas from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. 10 years is the maximum term of these loans. The USDA also assists rural communities through its Community Facilities Loan Program. Low-interest loans are offered to rural communities to purchase, construct, and improve essential community facilities and equipment, such as healthcare facilities or public works vehicles. The maximum term of these loans is 40 years. Principal payments on long-term debt are made in annual amounts. The first debt service payment takes place no later than the end of the fiscal year that begins after the date of issue. There are two primary repayment structures used: level debt service, in which the combined annual amount of principal and interest payments remains relatively constant over the life of the bond, and level principal, in which only the amount of principal payments remains relatively constant over the life of the bonds. This results in debt service payments that are initially higher but decline over time. Local officials should utilize DLS's online debt service calculator to view different scenarios. Refunding a bond is like refinancing a mortgage to take advantage of lower rates. New debt is issued in the form of refunding bonds, and the proceeds are used to retire the outstanding debt. The City Council or Select Board may authorize refunding bonds or notes for the purpose of paying or refunding all or part of a previous bond or note issuance. Term of new bond must be within the original term. The term of the refund borrowing must be within the original term authorized for the bonds or notes to be refunded. In most cases, a refunding can only take place if it results in debt service savings. There are exceptions made when a refunding is needed to correct the tax-exempt status of municipal debt. The issuance of short-term debt allows cities and towns to borrow funds on a temporary basis in anticipation of collecting certain revenue sources, such as state aid or tax revenue, or issuing long-term debt. This type of borrowing allows a community to make interest-only payments until the anticipated revenues or financing source is secured. Short-term issuance typically lasts no longer than 2 years, but can be renewed with a principal payment. There are 3 basic types of short-term borrowing: revenue anticipation notes, which are used to stabilize cash flows and are paid off by anticipated revenue sources like tax collections and state aid; grant anticipation notes, which are paid off by the proceeds of a grant awarded by the federal government or Commonwealth; and bond anticipation notes, which are issued under the authorization of and in anticipation of a longer-term debt issuance. This table illustrates how bond paydown procedures work. In this example, the legislative body has voted to authorize $100,000 in borrowing for 20 years to finance a local capital project. Note that the principal payments do not begin until the 3rd year of issuance. After 10 years, $55,552 in principal balance remains. Long-term debt must be issued to finance this amount. Because the original borrowing term was 20 years, the permanent debt must now be issued for a period not to exceed 10 years. State statute permits cities and towns to deficit spend, or spend without appropriation to address major disasters. An emergency declaration must be approved by the governor or a majority of the select board in a town or 2/3 of a city or town council. In addition, the Division of Local Services Director of Accounts must provide approval. Eligible expenses include overtime, debris removal, contractual assistance, and emergency repairs to public buildings and infrastructure. Emergency spending can be funded either by appropriation, the following year's tax revenues, or through emergency borrowing. For more information on specific programs mentioned in this presentation, please visit these links for the United States Department of Agriculture, Massachusetts School Building Authority, Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, and the State House Notes Program.